The rope burned against my wrists as Jake dragged me through the forest, his breathing heavy with rage. Blood trickled from the cut above my eye where his ring had caught me during the struggle at my apartment. "You're going to pay for what you did to Isabella," he snarled, jerking me forward when I stumbled over a root. I wanted to scream that I was innocent, that I'd never hurt anyone, but the gag in my mouth reduced my protests to muffled sounds. My mind raced, trying to understand how everything had gone so wrong so fast. 3 hours earlier, I'd been painting in my studio apartment, lost in the gentle strokes of watercolour on canvas. The knock at my door had been soft, almost hesitant. When I opened it, Jake stood there with tears streaming down his face. "Amelia, please," he'd whispered. "Isabella's in the hospital. She's barely conscious, and she keeps saying your name." I'd known Jake for 2 years through our mutual friend group. He was Isabella's ex-boyfriend, though they'd broken up 6 months ago after a messy relationship that everyone whispered about. I barely knew Isabella myself. We'd met maybe 4 times at parties, exchanged pleasantries, nothing more. "What happened to her?" I'd asked, genuine concern flooding my voice. "Someone attacked her in the parking garage of her apartment building, beat her unconscious." His hands shook as he ran them through his dark hair. "The police found your business card in her purse, Amelia, and she keeps mumbling your name." The accusation hit me like a physical blow. "Jake, I would never—" "Don't lie to me." His voice cracked with pain and fury. "She showed me the texts you sent her, the threats." "What texts? I don't even have her number." But Jake wasn't listening anymore. His grief had twisted into something dangerous, and before I could react, he'd shoved past me into my apartment. The next few minutes were a blur of shouting, struggling, and then darkness as something hard connected with my skull. Now, as branches tore at my clothes and the forest grew thicker around us, I realised Jake had completely lost his mind. The rational man I'd known had been consumed by whatever twisted story Isabella had fed him. "Jake, please," I tried to say through the gag, but it came out as desperate mumbles. He stopped abruptly at the edge of what looked like a massive sinkhole. The opening was roughly circular, about 15 feet across, with jagged rocks forming a natural mouth that disappeared into blackness. The smell of damp the earth and decay rose from its depths. "This is Raven's Drop," Jake said, his voice eerily calm now. "Local legend says it's bottomless. Native tribes used to throw their enemies down here." Terror shot through me as I understood his intention. I thrashed against the ropes, trying to break free, but Jake had tied them too well. "Isabella trusted you," he continued, staring into the pit. "She said you seemed so kind, so gentle. She never saw it coming when you turned on her." I shook my head violently, tears streaming down my face. Nothing about this made sense. Why would Isabella lie about me? We barely knew each other. What could she possibly gain from framing me for her attack? Jake pulled out his phone and I heard Isabella's voice, weak and trembling, coming through the speaker. "Jake, did you find her?" "I found her, Isa. She's here." "Good." Even through her apparent pain, there was something in Isabella's tone that made my blood run cold. A satisfaction that didn't match someone seeking justice. It sounded like someone savouring revenge. "She's going to pay for what she did to you," Jake promised. "Make sure she suffers," Isabella whispered. "Make sure she knows what it feels like to be helpless." The call ended, and Jake's expression hardened with renewed purpose. He grabbed me by the shoulders, positioning me at the edge of the pit. "Any last words?" He yanked the gag from my mouth. "Jake, please listen to me," I gasped, my voice hoarse. "I swear on my mother's grave, I never touched Isabella. I don't know why she's doing this, but she's lying to you." "Stop." His grip tightened. "Just stop lying." "Check my phone. Check my apartment. There's no evidence because I didn't do anything." For a moment, something flickered in his eyes. Doubt, maybe, or recognition that my desperate plea rang with truth. But then he shook his head, as if dismissing the thought. She had your business card, Amelia. She knew your name. She described your car, your apartment building. How would she know all that if you didn't attack her? I don't know, but there has to be an explanation that doesn't involve me beating someone unconscious. Jake's phone buzzed with a text. He glanced at it and his face went pale. What is it? I asked, seizing on any distraction. He showed me the screen. It was a photo of Isabella in a hospital bed, her face bruised and swollen, with the message, "Don't let her convince you she's innocent. She planned this attack for weeks." The image was horrifying, and despite everything, I felt genuine sympathy for Isabella's injuries. But something about the photo nagged at me, something I couldn't quite identify. Jake, I'm begging you, call the police. Let them investigate properly. If I'm guilty, I'll face justice through the legal system. But if you do this, if you throw me down there, you'll be a murderer. Is that what Isabella would really want? His hands trembled as he held my shoulders. She's suffering because of you. But what if I'm innocent? What if someone else hurt her and she's confused? Head injuries can cause memory problems, hallucinations. Enough, Jake roared, but I could see the conflict tearing him apart. Please just give me one chance to prove my innocence. One phone call to my neighbour who saw me painting all afternoon. One look at my apartment to see there's no evidence of planning an attack. One conversation with Isabella when she's not traumatised and medicated. Jake stared into the pit, then back at me. For a heart-stopping moment, I thought I'd reached him. Then his phone rang. Isabella's name flashed on the screen. Don't answer it, I pleaded. Please, Jake, just think for yourself for 1 minute. But he answered anyway. Jake? Isabella's voice was stronger now, more urgent. Where are you? The police are asking questions. You need to finish this now, before they find you. I'm here, Isa. I'm about to... Do it now, she screamed through the phone. She hurt me, Jake. She destroyed everything. Make her pay. The raw anguish in Isabella's voice shattered whatever doubt Jake had been holding on to. His expression hardened into cold determination. I'm sorry, Amelia, he said quietly, but I believe her over you. And with that, he pushed me into the darkness. The fall felt endless. I tumbled through black air, my screams echoing off invisible walls, until I crashed into something that broke my fall, but sent spikes of agony through my left shoulder. I rolled, gasping, onto what felt like a pile of debris. Silence settled around me like a suffocating blanket. I could hear Jake's footsteps retreating above, growing fainter until they disappeared entirely. I was alone in the pit, injured with no way to climb out, and somewhere above, Isabella was celebrating her victory over an innocent woman she'd destroyed for reasons I couldn't fathom. But I was alive, and as long as I was breathing, I wasn't giving up. Pain radiated from my shoulder as I slowly sat up, blinking into the absolute darkness. My fingers explored the debris beneath me, broken branches, loose rocks, and something that felt disturbingly like old bones. The air carried the musty scent of decay and stagnant water. I fumbled for my phone, praying it had survived the fall. The screen was cracked, but still functional, casting a weak glow that revealed my prison. The pit wasn't bottomless, as Jake had claimed. I'd fallen maybe 30 feet onto a ledge that jutted from the circular walls. Below me, the darkness continued down into what might actually be bottomless depths. My shoulder throbbed, definitely dislocated but not broken. I'd learned basic first aid during my volunteer work at the animal shelter, enough to know I could reset it myself if I had to. But first, I needed to understand why I was here. Something about Isabella's hospital photo kept bothering me. I pulled up the image Jake had shown me, studying it carefully. The bruising looked fresh, severe, exactly what you'd expect from a brutal beating. But there was something wrong with the timestamp. My blood turned cold as I realised what I was seeing. The photo's metadata showed it was taken yesterday at 3:47 p.m. But Jake had said Isabella was attacked last night around midnight. How could she have hospital photos from yesterday afternoon of injuries that hadn't happened yet? I screenshot the image and zoomed in further. The bruising pattern seemed almost too perfect, too symmetrical. And that hospital bracelet, the barcode was too blurry to read, but I could make out part of the hospital name. Mercy General. But Mercy General had closed down 3 years ago after the malpractice scandal. Isabella had faked the entire attack. My mind raced as pieces clicked into place. She must have used makeup to create the bruises, staged the photo in an abandoned room that looked medical, then had someone actually injure her afterward to make the story believable. The real question was why she'd gone through such elaborate lengths to frame me. I barely knew her. Our few interactions had been polite, superficial, unless a memory surfaced from 4 months ago. I'd been at a gallery opening with my friend Natalie when Isabella approached us. She'd seemed friendly enough, asking about my art, my life. But when Natalie mentioned that I'd recently gotten a commission for a mural at the new downtown hotel, the same project Isabella's design firm had bid on, her entire demeanour shifted. "Congratulations," she'd said, but her smile never reached her eyes. "It must be nice having connections in the right places." I'd been confused by the comment since I'd won the commission purely on merit, but Natalie had quickly changed the subject. Now I understood. Isabella believed I'd somehow stolen her opportunity, and this was her revenge. The sound of voices drifted down from above, snapping me back to the present. I quickly turned off my phone's light and pressed myself against the wall. "Are you sure she fell far enough?" A woman's voice, Isabella, but without the pain and weakness she'd displayed on Jake's phone calls. 30 feet, at least. Even if she survived the fall, she's trapped. No one will find her down there. Jake's voice carried a note of doubt that hadn't been there before. "Good. By the time her body's discovered, if it ever is, there won't be enough evidence to trace anything back to us." Us. So Jake was more involved than I'd realised. "I still think we should have just gone to the police with the fake evidence," Jake said. "This feels like what? Justice? She cost me the biggest contract of my career, Jake. Do you know what that hotel mural would have meant for my firm?" "But murder, Isabella, this is murder. It's survival. You think she would have stopped at just stealing one commission? People like her with their fake innocent acts. They take and take until there's nothing left." I heard footsteps pacing above. "The hospital photos were convincing," Jake said quietly. "How did you make them look so real?" "Theatre makeup and a friend who owes me favours. The abandoned wing of Mercy General still has some equipment in it. Then I just had to actually hurt myself enough to sell the story when you brought her here." My stomach lurched. She'd injured herself just to make her lie more believable. "The police will investigate her disappearance," Jake said. "What if they trace it back to us?" "They won't. I've already planted evidence in her apartment suggesting she was planning to skip town. Credit card purchases for camping gear, research on remote locations. When she doesn't come home, it'll look like she ran away out of guilt." The calculated coldness in Isabella's voice made my skin crawl. This wasn't a crime of passion. It was premeditated, methodical, and she'd manipulated Jake's feelings for her to make him an unwitting accomplice. "You said she attacked you out of jealousy," Jake said, "but she seemed genuinely confused about why you'd accuse her." "That's called acting, Jake. Sociopaths are very good at it." I could hear the doubt growing in Jake's voice. "Isabella, what if nothing? It's done. She's gone. In a few days, I'll miraculously recover from my traumatic injuries, and life goes back to normal. Except now, I'm the victim who survived a brutal attack, and potential clients will feel sorry enough for me to throw some sympathy contracts my way. My phone buzzed with a text message. I quickly muffled the sound, but not before I heard Jake ask, "What was that?" "Probably just an animal. Come on, let's get back to the car." Their footsteps retreated, but I waited several minutes before checking my phone. The text was from my neighbour, Mrs. Chen. "Amelia, there are police at your apartment asking questions about you and some attack. Where are you?" "Perfect." Isabella's plan was already in motion. Soon, the police would find whatever evidence she'd planted, and I'd be wanted for assault. Even if I somehow escaped this pit, I'd be running from the law for a crime I didn't commit. I needed proof of Isabella's deception, but more than that, I needed to survive long enough to expose her. My phone's battery was at 40%. I had maybe 4 hours of light if I used it sparingly. The walls of the pit were limestone, carved smooth by centuries of water flow. But limestone could be climbed if you knew what to look for, and my years of rock climbing as a teenager might finally prove useful. I began feeling along the walls, searching for any cracks or protrusions that could serve as handholds. Near what I guessed was the north side, my fingers found a series of small ledges. Not much, but possibly enough. But first, I had to deal with my shoulder. Gritting my teeth, I positioned myself against the wall and pulled hard. The joint popped back into place with a sound that echoed through the pit. Pain flared white-hot, then settled into a dull ache. I was ready to climb. As I mapped out my route up the wall, one thought burned in my mind. Isabella had made one crucial mistake. She'd assumed I would die quietly in this pit, taking the truth with me. She was about to learn how wrong she was. The climb took 3 hours. Each handhold was a victory, each slipped grip a terror that sent loose stones clattering into the abyss below. My injured shoulder screamed with every pull, but adrenaline and pure fury kept me moving upward. By the time I hauled myself over the rim of Raven's Drop, my hands were raw and bleeding, my phone battery down to 12%. The forest was quiet, except for the distant hum of traffic. I oriented myself using the North Star and began the trek back towards civilization. Isabella thought she'd silenced me permanently, but she'd given me something far more valuable than she realised: time to think, to plan, and to gather the evidence that would destroy her. My apartment would be swarming with police by now, searching for clues to support Isabella's fabricated assault charge. But Isabella had made several critical errors, and I knew exactly how to exploit them. First stop, the 24-hour internet cafe downtown. I paid cash and logged into a secure email account I'd created years ago for freelance work. Using the cafe's printer, I created copies of the hospital photo with its impossible timestamp, along with screenshots showing the metadata. Then, I researched Mercy General's closure date and printed articles about the abandoned hospital wing. Next, I needed witness testimony about Isabella's real condition yesterday. The photo timestamp was 3:47 p.m, which meant Isabella had been somewhere creating fake injuries during normal business hours. Someone had to have seen her. I called Natalie from the cafe's payphone. "Amelia? Thank God. The police are looking for you. They say you attacked Isabella Rodriguez." "Nat, I need you to listen carefully. I'm innocent, and I can prove it, but I need your help. Remember 4 months ago at the gallery opening, when Isabella got weird about my hotel commission? Yeah, she seemed really bitter about it. Why? She's framing me for revenge. I need you to think. Yesterday afternoon around 3:30, did you see or hear anything about Isabella? Maybe on social media?" Natalie was quiet for a moment. "Actually, yes. My cousin works at that makeup effects studio downtown, the one that does theatre and film work. She posted a story on Instagram about a crazy client who wanted realistic bruise makeup for some art project. She said the woman was really specific about making it look like assault injuries." My heart raced. "Can you get me that Instagram story? And maybe Talk to your cousin about describing this client? I'll try, but Instagram stories disappear after 24 hours. Check if anyone screenshot it, or if your cousin saved it. This is literally life or death, Nat. While Natalie worked on that lead, I used a different computer to hack into Isabella's social media accounts. Her password security was pathetic. Her birthday and last name. Within minutes, I was scrolling through her private messages. What I found was a goldmine of evidence. Messages to a friend who worked at a medical supply company, asking about borrowing a hospital bracelet and IV tubing for a photography project. Texts to someone named Rico about accessing the abandoned wing of Mercy General for artistic purposes. And most damning of all, a conversation with Jake from 2 weeks ago where she'd planted the seeds of her plan. Isabella, I'm worried about Amelia. She's been acting strange lately, asking weird questions about my business. Jake, strange? How? Isabella, jealous questions about my clients, my success. I think she blames me for not getting enough commissions. Jake, that doesn't sound like her. Isabella, people aren't always what they seem. I just hope she doesn't do anything desperate. She'd been conditioning Jake to suspect me for weeks before the fake attack. Every message was carefully crafted to build a narrative of my supposed jealousy and instability. But then I found something even better. A message from yesterday morning, hours before the supposed attack. Everything's ready, medical makeup looks perfect, and the photo shoot is scheduled for 3:30. Jake will be so devastated when he finds out what happened to me. I screenshot everything and saved it to multiple cloud accounts. My phone buzzed with a call from Natalie. Amelia, you're not going to believe this. My cousin still had the photos from yesterday's makeup session. She saved them because she was proud of how realistic they looked. And she remembers the client perfectly. Isabella Rodriguez. She even has the signed waiver. Can you get copies of everything? Already on it. I'm heading to the studio now. But, Amelia, where are you? The police have a warrant out. I can't tell you yet, but I'm going to fix this. Just get me that evidence. After hanging up, I researched Isabella's business more thoroughly. Her design firm was struggling. I found unpaid invoices, complaints from clients, and a pattern of projects falling through. The hotel commission I'd won would have saved her company, which explained the desperation behind her scheme. But Isabella's biggest mistake was underestimating Jake's conscience. I'd heard the doubt in his voice at the pit, and that doubt would be growing now. If I could reach him before Isabella realised I'd escaped, I might be able to turn him into an ally. I found Jake's address through public records and took a taxi to his neighbourhood. His house was dark except for a single light in what looked like a kitchen window. I crept around to the backyard and peered through a gap in the blinds. Jake sat at his kitchen table, staring at his phone. Even from outside, I could see the torment on his face. Isabella had manipulated him into attempted murder, and the guilt was eating him alive. I knocked softly on the back door. Jake's head snapped up, and when he saw me, his face went white. "That's impossible," he whispered, opening the door with shaking hands. "You fell 30 feet. I survived, Jake, and now I know the truth about Isabella. He backed away from me, fear and confusion warring in his expression. "You're supposed to be dead. Is that what Isabella told you would happen? Or did you think I'd just disappear quietly?" I stepped into his kitchen, keeping my hands visible and my voice calm. "When did you start having doubts?" Jake collapsed into a chair, his head in his hands. "The moment I pushed you. God help me. The moment you fell, I knew something was wrong. Your face, you looked so genuinely terrified, so confused, not like someone who'd been caught in a lie. Because I wasn't lying. Isabella fabricated everything, Jake. The attack, the evidence, even the hospital photos. That's impossible. I saw the pictures. The injuries were real. I pulled out the printed screenshots showing the photo metadata. Look at the timestamp. This picture was taken at 3:47 p.m. yesterday. But you said Isabella was attacked at midnight. How do you take hospital photos of injuries that haven't happened yet? Jake stared at the evidence, his face crumbling as the truth sank in. No, she wouldn't. She couldn't. She used theatre makeup to create fake bruises, took photos in the abandoned wing of Mercy General, then actually injured herself afterward to sell the story. I have proof of all of it. His phone rang. Isabella's name flashed on the screen. Don't answer it, I said quickly. But Jake was already swiping to accept the call, his movements mechanical. Hello? Jake, thank goodness. I've been so worried. How are you holding up? Jake stared at me across the kitchen table, the phone trembling in his hand. For the first time since this nightmare began, Isabella's concerned act was falling on ears that heard the deception beneath it. I'm not okay, Isabella. I know, sweetheart. But you did what you had to do. She hurt me, and now she can't hurt anyone else. What if she was telling the truth? The silence on the other end stretched too long. When Isabella spoke again, her voice had lost its gentle manipulation and carried a sharp edge of panic. Jake, you can't start doubting now. She was dangerous. You saw the evidence. Evidence that doesn't make sense, Jake said, his voice growing stronger with each word. Evidence that has the wrong timestamps and comes from a closed hospital. Another long pause. Then Isabella's voice turned cold and calculating, the same tone I'd heard at the pit. What exactly are you trying to say, Jake? I'm saying you lied to me, Jake's voice cracked with the weight of his realization. You made me try to kill an innocent woman. Isabella's laugh was sharp and brittle through the phone speaker. Innocent? She stole my biggest contract, Jake. She destroyed my entire future. By winning a commission fair and square? Jake stood up abruptly, pacing toward the window. That's not destruction, Isabella. That's competition. Put me on speaker, I whispered. Jake hesitated, then complied. Hello, Isabella, I said clearly. Surprised to hear my voice. The gasp on the other end was audible. Then silence stretched for nearly 10 seconds before Isabella's voice returned, colder than winter steel. You always were resourceful, Amelia. I'll give you that. Resourceful enough to climb out of your murder pit. Resourceful enough to find the makeup artist who helped you create those fake injuries. Resourceful enough to screenshot all your private messages planning this entire scheme? Messages can be fabricated. Not with metadata timestamps that match your makeup appointment. Not when the hospital in your evidence photos has been closed for 3 years. Not when you literally texted someone yesterday morning that everything's ready for the photo shoot. Jake sank back into his chair, the full scope of Isabella's manipulation hitting him. You planned this for weeks. The comments about Amelia being jealous, the warnings about her behaviour. You were conditioning me. I was protecting myself. Isabella's composure finally shattered. Do you know what it's like to watch someone waltz in and take everything you've worked for? She didn't deserve that commission. I had connections at that hotel, a relationship with the developers. But they chose her because she was cheaper, more authentic. What's authentic about stealing someone else's opportunities? I won that commission because my design was better, I said evenly. Your proposal was generic corporate minimalism. Mine told a story about the city's history and culture. The selection committee chose art over politics. You think you're so superior, don't you? With your little watercolour paintings and your artistic integrity. You have no idea what real business is like. Jake's phone buzzed with an incoming text. He glanced at it and his expression darkened further. What is it? I asked. She's asking if I took care of the problem permanently and reminding me about the evidence she planted in your apartment. He looked up at Isabella's name still displayed on the call screen. You really thought I'd just become your willing accomplice in murder? You were already my accomplice the moment you threw her into that pit, Isabella snapped. You think you can just walk away from this? You're in too deep now, Jake. If she goes to the police, you go down too. Actually, I interrupted, Jake's going to be the star witness in your prosecution. See, I recorded our entire conversation tonight. I have him confessing that you manipulated him, that he had doubts, and, most importantly, I have you just now admitting to faking the attack, planning the scheme, and attempting to commit murder. The line went silent except for Isabella's rapid breathing. Jake's going to turn himself in tonight and make a full confession about how you deceived him. With his cooperation and all my evidence, you'll be facing charges for filing false police reports, evidence tampering, attempted murder, and conspiracy. That's looking like 25 years minimum. You can't prove anything, Isabella said, but her voice lacked conviction. I already proved everything. The makeup artist kept photos of your fake injuries. Your friend at the medical supply company kept records of what you borrowed. Your text messages are saved to multiple cloud accounts. And my neighbour has security camera footage of you entering my apartment yesterday to plant evidence, footage that clearly shows you without any injuries hours after your supposed attack. Jake stood up and walked to his front window, pulling back the curtain. Isabella, there are police cars coming down the street. Did you call them? No, I didn't. That's because I called them, I said, about 10 minutes ago while you were busy confessing to attempted murder on a recorded line. They're coming to arrest you, not me. The sound of a car door slamming echoed through Jake's phone speaker, followed by Isabella's panicked voice growing more distant as she moved away from her phone. This isn't over, Amelia. You think you've won, but you've made an enemy for life. Actually, it is over. And you made the enemy when you decided to frame an innocent person for a crime that never happened. The line went dead. Jake set his phone down and turned to me with haunted eyes. I almost killed you based on her lies. How do I live with that? You live with it by making sure she faces justice. You were manipulated by someone who exploited your feelings and twisted your sense of right and wrong. The important thing is that you recognized the truth when you saw it. Blue lights flashed through Jake's windows as police cars pulled up outside. I walked to the front door and opened it, hands visible as 3 officers approached with their weapons drawn. I'm Amelia Chen, I called out clearly. I'm the assault victim you've been looking for. The woman who reported the attack is inside that house across the street, and I have evidence proving she fabricated the entire incident. 2 hours later, I sat in the police station, watching through a one-way window, as Isabella Rodriguez was processed for booking. Gone was the manipulative sweetness, the calculated vulnerability. She looked exactly like what she was, a desperate woman whose greed and jealousy had driven her to attempt murder. Detective Morrison slid a cup of coffee across the table to me. The evidence you collected is impressive. Most people wouldn't have thought to document metadata timestamps or track down witnesses so systematically. Most people don't get thrown into murder pits. It focuses the mind. Jake Williams is cooperating fully. His testimony about how she manipulated him, combined with your evidence, makes this case airtight. She's looking at attempted murder, conspiracy, filing false reports, and breaking and entering. With her criminal history, she has a criminal history? Fraud charges from 5 years ago that were dropped when the witnesses suddenly recanted their testimony. Looks like this wasn't her first time manipulating people to get what she wanted. Through the window, I watched Isabella being led to a holding cell. She caught sight of the one-way mirror and stared directly at where I was sitting, as if she could see through the glass. Her expression was pure hatred, but also defeat. Detective Morrison followed my gaze. She'll be in prison for a long time, and Jake Williams will probably get probation and community service, given that he was a victim of manipulation himself and cooperated fully with our investigation. 6 months later, I received a letter at my studio. The return address was the state correctional facility where Isabella was serving her 22-year sentence. I threw it away without opening it. Some chapters of your life deserve to stay closed, especially the ones where someone tried to write your obituary. I had art to create, commissions to complete, and a life to live. A life that Isabella Rodriguez would never again have the power to touch. The hotel mural I'd won was unveiled that spring. It depicted the city's history through 4 seasons, showing how beauty persists through every kind of storm. Standing at the dedication ceremony, surrounded by people who appreciated my work, I realized that Isabella had given me an unexpected gift. She'd shown me exactly how strong I was when everything was stripped away. And that was worth more than any commission I'd ever win.